Alrighty, welcome to this episode of Lectures with Liddington. In this episode, we're going to talk about how multicellular organisms are made of many different cells. But because they're made of many different cells, the cells within them don't all look the same because they don't all do the same thing. And that's called cell specialization. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. So when I say cell specialization, what that means is that within a multicellular organism, all of the cells look really different because they're all doing different things. So when I have a group of cells that have a specific job, they're considered specialized. So think of the cells in your body, right? Your heart is doing one thing. Your lungs are doing another thing. Your muscles are doing something else. So within your body, different cells have different jobs, and they're all working together to maintain homeostasis. So we're going to talk about some specific examples here. In animals, so muscle cells and neurons, those are the cells in your nervous system. And then guard cells and palisade cells are examples in plants. Notice plants, animals, these are both multicellular organisms. They have specialized cells. So we have muscles, right? There's actually three different types. We've got smooth muscle, skeletal, or striated, and cardiac muscle. And muscles are there to help you move, right? They aid in movement in some fashion. Skeletal muscles are the ones that we generally think of first, right? Because those are your bis, your tris, your quads, things like that. They're involved in us physically moving from place to place. But we also have muscle cells in our body that are involved in moving stuff throughout our body. So smooth muscle, these are the muscles in your intestinal system. So they will contract one at a time onto the next muscle so that you can move food through your intestinal tract. With cardiac muscle, that's your heart, right? So they're moving blood through your body. Now, there are lots of mitochondria in muscle cells. What do mitochondria do again? Yeah, that's right. They provide energy. Makes sense that muscles are going to have a lot of mitochondria because it's a lot of energy to be constantly in motion like that. So when we look at differences between different types of cells, it makes sense how specialized they are. With neurons, what neurons are they the cells in your nervous system? And they're really cool because normally we think, ooh, cells are really teeny tiny and you see lots of them when you look in a microscope. But neurons are actually a single cell and they can be feet long. If you've got a neuron that goes from the brainstem, the back of your brain, all the way down to your hand, that's a really long cell. And they're specialized. And they have what's called myelin on the outside. It's a little coating that helps send the signal faster. Because if you have your hand on the hot stove, you need to get it off fast. So that signal needs to go there really, really quickly. So they're specialized to do their job really fast. Plants are really cool. They have very unique features comparatively to us because they're doing different things. So they need to have different structures to do those different functions. Here, this is a picture of the bottom of a leaf. And within the bottom of the leaf, there are these little holes. They're called stomata. And around the stomata, there are two what are called guard cells. And the job of these guard cells is to expand and contract this way to open and close that hole. And what that does is it regulates water going in and out of it. So for example, if it's a really, really hot day, water's going to evaporate really quickly, right? And as a plant, you need water. So if it's really hot, those guard cells will contract in and they will close up that stomata so that the water doesn't evaporate out. These cells don't have chloroplasts. Interesting. It's a plant. Why wouldn't they have chloroplasts? Well, what do chloroplasts do? Yeah, energy. Again, right? They're there for cellular energy. Well, it doesn't take a lot of energy. It's literally just this. They're not there to produce energy for the rest of the plant. They're there like bouncers for water. They're going to keep water in. They're going to let water in. They're going to keep it in. They're going to let it in. They're going to keep it in. They're going to let it in. And that's their job. That's all they're worried about. They're not worried about photosynthesis. They literally are just going to make sure there's the right amount of water in that cell. Another really cool kind of cell in plants is called a palisade cell. And this diagram here, or this picture here rather, is an example of a cross section of a leaf. So if we slice it and we're looking at it sort of like this way, so the leaf is flat here. If we turn it and then cut it, this is the top of the leaf, and this is a palisade cell. And notice they're really close to the top. What they do is photosynthesis, right? They're right close to the top. They pull that sun in. They pump out energy for the rest of the plant. So if they're pumping out energy through photosynthesis, what cell organelle would they have a lot of? Yeah, chloroplasts. So palisade cells are going to be filled with chloroplasts because that's their job. Now, within multicellular organisms, because we have these specialized cells, they are organized by hierarchy, right? So we can organize the level of complexity of these specialized cells. So what is the basic unit of life? Yeah, cells, right? So I start with cells, and then I get a bunch of cells that are specialized. They all do the same thing, and they're together in a group. Well, that group of cells that all do the same thing is called a tissue. So think I have cardiac muscle cells. I have a bunch of them, and they all work together. They contract to help push that blood in or out of your heart, depending on direction. That's cardiac muscle tissue. If I take a bunch of tissues that all do something slightly different, but work together for the same function, that's called an organ. Think in our same example, if you put some cardiac muscle tissue, some connective tissue, and a couple other different types of tissues and wrap them together, and all those tissues are pumping blood through your body, you have a heart, right? Your heart is an organ. If I take a couple of different organs, put them together, they all do the same job. That's an organ system. Think your cardiovascular system, right? It's your heart, your arteries, your veins, your capillaries, and they're all working together to pump blood throughout your body. If you take a bunch of organ systems, pop them together, you get an organism, like you or me, your cat, your dog, your pine tree, right? So when we put them all together, we get an organism. So these are categorical levels of organization that we find in multicellular organisms. So let's take a second and do a little practice.